Okay, good morning, everybody. So we are going to do a relatively quick compared to our last couple of videos. We're going to do a quick lab, which is this lab 3, which is called clock, and you can read through the requirements on the screen. It's really just dealing with events, and we're going to learn a couple things about events in C Sharp by doing this. And so we'll go ahead and start out by adding our project. I think I'll just call this EX4, example 4. And we could just start by adding all these text boxes on our screen. So TXT1 and number 1. Make this GUI real quick. Oops. Tab index 4, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see. This guy tab index 2, this guy's tab index of 3.
I got a random question here about the properties for these controls that we're putting on there. Is there a way to just filter down your favorite, like a favorites list? For example, like use system password character for a text box. Haven't used it, probably won't ever use it. So, is there a way to filter it down to maybe like top 10 or something? Make it a little bit easier to code?
If I knew a way, I would be all about that. That would be awesome, but I don't know of a way. But I haven't researched that either. Um, so maybe because I haven't looked into it, but not that I'm aware of.
I was afraid that was the answer. All right.
Yeah, property value. I must be trying to do something here. Oh, okay. We got our little text box clock, and what I'm going to do is I want to make an event handler that's called. I don't want the default event handler name, so I'm going to click on TXT1, and I'm going to click this lightning bolt. And for the click event, I'm going to find the click event. I'm going to type here, and I'm going to call it any text box underscore click. You type that in there, and you hit enter, and it will generate an event handler with that name. And what we're going to do is we're going to wire up all of our text boxes. So if we click any one of them, it runs this one method. And you'll notice it says when the user clicks on a text box, change the background color to yellow. Um, if you remember, I described these two parameters in the past. I said sender, which is a lowercase s, is the control that initiated the event. I don't know if I spelled that right. So sender is the control that initiated the event. In other words, which text box did you click? That is going to be stored in sender. E, event args E, and keep in mind the data type of sender is an object, right? So we're probably going to have to convert the object or cast the object into something else. E contains additional information about the event. You know, for example, if the event is a key press, in other words, you pressed a key on the keyboard, which key did you press? If the event is a mouse click, which button did you click? Left click, right click, center wheel click, so on and so forth, right? So this would be, again, E contains additional information, and sender is the control itself. And so we could cast sender into a text box. We could do something like text box T equals text box. We cast sender. And then we could say T dot back color equals color dot yellow. And so you see, really, it's actually not too hard that once we cast sender into the appropriate data type, let's go to example 4. Let's click the right buttons. Now it doesn't work on the other buttons. Why? Because we have not wired these other text boxes to this event. And so the way to do that is actually quite simple. So notice on my TXT1, when I'm looking at the properties of text1, I wired up any text box click to this. I should be able to notice if I highlight all of them, I can control click and then click in the text box, click the drop down arrow, I can wire them all up to that same event. So now when I look at any one of these, all of them are wired up to the same event handler. And now when I run it, when I click a text box, it changes its color. So a couple new things in this lab that we haven't actually coded before, sender being one of them, right? Using sender as the control, and then, excuse me, and then using that text box. And once you have a text box control in your code, well, then you can look at any of these properties. You say, well, what properties are at my disposal? And it's like, well, all of these. And so if I look for, I should be able to find back color. The back color property is right here. And that's the background color of our text box. And all we're doing is we're changing that back color property. Instead of changing it in the properties window, we're changing the background color, the back color of our text box through code instead. And so the next requirement says, hey, when a text box receives focus, change the background color to light blue. Well, the focus is the event called enter. When you enter, occurs when the control becomes the active control on the form. So that's the event that we're looking for. We'll call this, I believe we said any text box click. We'll call this any text box focus. And, well, then the code is just the same. Text box T, cast the sender into a text box, change the back color to light blue. So now notice this one has focus. If I, oh, why isn't it?
Oh, hey, Mr. G, the sender, is that part of the system object that's at the highest level? Can you explain a little bit of like how we're casting that down to a text box?
That that is correct. So you see sender, the data type on sender is an object, right? Keep in mind in the inheritance, object is the highest up. So essentially what you have is, and we haven't covered event handlers in detail, but a text box gets converted up into an object, right? So it gets boxed up into an object, and then, in other words, when it's passed into sender, it's boxed up, and then we're unboxing it. So what you're not seeing is when this method is called, the text box that's used is passed into sender, right? And since sender is an object that's higher on the hierarchy, right? So that's an upcast, which obviously we've covered why that works. And therefore, since text box, if you go up the hierarchy of text box, you know, the parent of text box is control, and then above control there might be a few other classes, but then above that you see it would be object. And so the reason we can cast our object into a text box is that object is a parent of text box. The Where I left off, I ran the program and it only turned light blue on the first one. I could tab and these weren't turning light blues because I didn't wire up the handler on all of these others text boxes. So let's go ahead and wire that up on the enter, any text box focus. And so now as I tab, they turn blue. As I click, they turn yellow. The next requirement, and this is pretty goes pretty fast. When it loses focus, change the background color to light gray. So the event for that is leave. So you'll see here on the description of leave occurs when the control is no longer the active control on the form. So we'll call this any text box leave. Control click all of these. Notice if I tab off of number 1, it goes gray. If I tab off of number 7, it goes gray. All the way around. Okay. The last requirement deals with key presses. Okay, so key presses, instead of working with sender, which I described sender already, we're going to be working with E. Remember, E contains additional information about the event. So if it's a key press, which key did you press? Let's read the requirement. It says when the user presses down the up arrow, change the focus to text box 1. When the user presses the right, down, or left arrow on the keyboard, change the focus. And so I'm going to click on text box 1, and the event is key down that we're looking for. So I'm going to look for key down occurs when a key is first pressed. So I'll call this any text box underscore key down. Again, I like giving them these custom names. That way it's for multiple text boxes. Actually, one second here. If you generated that event, I'll just go ahead and generate that. Mm, that's okay. We'll keep it this way for now. That should be okay. I just, I worry too much about the names. If we need to change the name, we can change it later. With this, we can do a switch on e.keyCode. Keycode is the property that gets, you can see the description there, gets the keyboard code, which I'll show you what those look like. You've got keys.up, that's the up arrow, right? And if we think about the up arrow, so we can switch on keys.up, which means you push the up arrow. Text1.focus, break. Case keys.write, text3.focus, down, text 5, focus.
In your properties there, you can only have one event for, say, like key press or leave or enter, right? You can't put a comma and have more than one event. Obviously, that would break it. You have to do switches if you're having something change.
Yeah, yeah, just one event. The left was number 7, txt7.focus. So any text box key down, I'm going to put this on, the reason I didn't like it is I'm going to put this on put it on the form as well. That way if any text box is not focused, so that's why I didn't like the name, because I'm thinking here, what if any text box isn't focused? It could be a better name than any text box, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and click all those. Key down, any text box key down, any text box key down. Let's see right. So mouse clicks and key presses. Okay. So that was a quick video, quick lab. I just wanted to go over some new things. I don't think you have to be too worried about, this kind of thing being on the hands-on test. So didn't want to spend a long time on it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. That was a short one.